Welcome to Brand of the Match. In this series, Joelle and I are going to be debating who's the best brand in a series of competitions. This is heavily leaning on the World Cup, and there's a deep irony in this, and that neither of us are sporting fans, but we're going to make it work. So we're going to be debating who's the best out-of-home brand, who is the most viral brand, which brand uses personal brand most effectively. The rules are pretty simple. We're going to have the debate. We've got a couple of cards to show you. If there's a challenge, if I really disagree, I'm going to be flashing my red card. A yellow card if I'm not sure and I want us to talk about something a bit more. And of course, the whistle to start and end the show. At the end of each episode, we're going to be making the decision as to who we think deserves brand of the match for each category. And we want you guys to tell us in the comments if we've got it wrong. We can't wait to get into this and see how it goes and hear what you think of the show.
May the best player win.
We are back for another episode of Brand of the Match. We're going to kick off things in ready. 3, 2, 1. Right, today we are discussing the champion of virality. Every time I hear the word viral, I want to roll my eyes, but I'm going to be optimistic about it. It's not annoying. It's a good thing. It's a good brief. We're happy about it.
When it's strategic.
Yes. When it's strategic, when it's possible, and when it's sufficiently funded, I will accept the challenge. Okay, so tell me what virality means to you.
How short form platforms work is that content is distributed to people who don't follow you. And virality is when that content reaches a significant amount of people who were not initially in your world. So some people say that virality means 1 million plus. For brands, that can mean like 200,000 plus. But it's ultimately when you are being viewed at a mass scale, a piece of content that you have usually not expected to go viral, has gone viral and is seen by loads of people and the centre of conversation.
I think that's the bit I really think is important. I think we've lost perspective that ideas can be viral, not just content. I think it's really important that we pull this out a bit and think about how press, to be honest, crisis comms is a huge response to potential virality. KFC run out of chicken, that is a viral moment that is either made or broken by the brand's response to it. So yes, it's primarily understood to be about social content, but I think it's definitely about what is said at the school gates, what is the thing you say to your colleague at the water cooler. That's what you're ultimately trying to control.
Definitely. And most viral content is about the message, not the messenger. So brands usually think, oh, we've gone viral, so they love the messenger, i.e. us. But no, they love the sound that you used and the general tone of voice.
I love the way you've just summarised that. It's the message, not the messenger, because I think we'll both have loads of examples of times in our career where we have created virality for a brand and yet it's not really delivered anything for them commercially. And that's because it is the message that's gone viral, which might ultimately not be about the product itself. And therefore, yeah, those eyeballs are great, but they're not necessarily that useful to the business because they're not communicating anything about the product itself.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say something that might be quite controversial here.
Oh.
Most brands, at the drop of a hat, know what's going to go viral. We both know what kind of content is going to go viral.
What? Red card?
No, genuinely. Most people know what content is going to go viral. But the key thing is that you have restraint. You understand that by rage baiting, by saying XYZ, by putting this in the feed, knowing that you can't deliver that, that's not really good for you as a brand. So the truth is, most people do know how to go viral, but it's not always in your best interest. And I can say that both as a creator, there are many, I know how to go viral, but I don't always want to go viral because that doesn't always attach to my long-term business goals. And equally, when I'm working with brands, sometimes going viral means being exposed to a completely different lane of customer who was never meant to be in your world in the first place. I give the example of Rimowa. They have recently, have you seen it? They've gone viral for a DJ who set one of their bags on fire. I mean, Rimowa have become really, really viral and essentially become the influencer starter pack suitcase. But for a luxury brand, going viral can actually be brand suicide because people don't associate you with exclusivity anymore. You become part of a starter pack meme, which defeats the whole purpose of craft and exclusivity, and you expose yourself to dupes.
Is this kind of the inverse of the Stanley Cup in the car fire story, which did so well for that brand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I had to raise my red card because I think you have no idea how talented you are. When you say everyone knows how to go viral, I'm like, no, Joelle, you and a few others do.
Most people know how to go viral when it's not off brand. So The issue that most brands have with going viral is that they're trying to do it whilst upholding every single thing in a brand guidelines doc that's 500 pages long. But if we were scrapping that aside, most people know what could go viral. You
I
know what
think they've
sounds to
got like a
use.
loose sense of it.
You've got the words, you've
But
got the
I still think there's an awful lot of marketers who are really having a go. But like, I think you need to give credit to how specific that secret sauce is, even if all of the elements feel quite obvious to you or to many people who they know it's a combination of a trending sound and a good hook and a topic that's a bit controversial. I think there's so much work out there that's designed with the intent of making it big and just doesn't work. So my red card is just like a shout out for everyone who's having a go, and also just like, I think you need to recognize your craft to say that this is tough. Like, this formula is not it might feel like the bits of the formula are obvious, but putting it together in a way that works, I don't think is easy at all.
that works and is on brand. For
I
example,
think even off brand is hard.
I mean, everyone knows that rage bait is very easy to drive engagement for, or to speak about something that's broadly controversial. That is what gets eyeballs, but it would never be on brand. It would never be something that I'd advise to brands if that was not part of their strategy. So that's why I say going viral can have an inverse effect for the people that just do it at all costs.
Definitely. I still think landing good rage bait's harder than it sounds. We know what it is, and we've talked a bit about, like, we've already got into the meat of this. Why I love viral campaigns is because there's always, potentially in my romantic view, always one person in an office somewhere who's done something often really fast or really brave or really like clear in their thinking that's made that piece of work happen. And so there's two examples of this that I've read about recently that I think are great. So Wendy's on X have developed this very clear tone of voice where they're pretty straightforward. Their customer service is pretty sassy. And that is apparently down to a woman called Amy Brown, who's the social media manager of Wendy's, who started this approach, and it's blown up, and she's just like going and going and going. And then the other example is the Punch the Monkey campaign that IKEA did, responsive, like reactive to the footage they saw. And again, this is in theory one woman, Alisa Wardrope, and I think it's really important that these people get a bit of a shout out. Alisa Wardrope, who saw this image, kind of said to her boss, like, give me 12 hours, I'm on it, and built the viral content that then did indeed go viral to like make IKEA own this story that they then had the amazing foresight to put in out of home and to like do this whole thing with. So I've just got a lot of time for the people, like the individuals who are at the heart of this great work. I'd like to give a shout out to some of them. I'd like our champion in this category to be someone where we can put one individual behind it.
Well, actually, I'm going to pull a bit of a yellow card.
Oh.
I have a counter. My nomination for brand of the match would be the tech brand Nothing. We've personally spoken about how brands should be thinking about themselves in a completely different category. That is exactly what Nothing do. Structurally, they're doing it as well. Their CMO just came from Loewe. So they are acting like a luxury fashion brand. They are acting like somebody who understands culture, not just a tech brand that's selling some metal that does some cool and interesting things on a screen.
Tell us a bit more about their work. I haven't come across it.
On their TikTok, they have really, really created a lot of behind the scenes content and a lot of social native content. What they do is they film it quite scrappy. It's not meant to feel very high production. They leave that for their Instagram because it speaks to a different consumer. And I think what's brilliant is their tone of voice.
What makes it go viral?
They're still at that stage with their social strategy that it's quite absurd to see a tech brand acting in that way. Whereas I feel that in fashion, we're so used to seeing fashion brands act like putting a food next to a piece of clothing or making something look delicious, whereas there's still that novelty that's built in with Nothing, and they've really capitalized that from the beginning.
It's nice to hear you talk about a very intentional approach. I think a lot of the examples that came to mind for me were like, there's this whole camp of campaigns where the question is like, was it real? Was it intentional? What was the actual story here? So like the KFC pickle jacket that, like, start from what I can understand, it started as an AI mock-up, and then someone said, let's make this real. And then there's the McDonald's CEO and his like pathetic tiny bite of the burger that maybe to your point earlier is like, that's bad, that's bad virality and you don't want that. But there are lots of these examples of, there's just, it's a really interesting debate of what was a curated moment to create virality versus what was something that happened that was turned viral by the right infrastructure in a business that allowed a team to jump on it. And that's quite different to what you're describing, which is like a real setup for virality.
Hmm. Well, I'm actually going to counter that. You mentioned McDonald's there.
Yeah.
I think what they've done really brilliantly and actually showed is that most big brand campaigns, especially on social, I believe, that go viral weren't actually meant to go viral. So that clip of the McDonald's CEO, very, very unexpected that it would hit so many people in that way. And the actual successful point was the follow-up to it. So the fact that they got him involved in more content, and then they understood and acknowledged that other fast food chains were doing the same thing. Oftentimes the virality and the success from it comes from what you do after the initial video.
Okay, so there's the initial event, which might be a true, unpredicted explosion.
Mhm.
And then it's what you do with that momentum that's like the making or breaking of the brand.
Absolutely. And on this topic of virality, we cannot speak about a big brand that's gone viral without mentioning Jet2. I think they had such a missed opportunity to capture. I mean, they did react to it. They did post some social assets, whatever. But they had such a missed opportunity to get Jess Glynn involved to actually turn this into a brand world building piece. Because if you go on their planes, they're still playing the music. They've licensed it for 10 years now. When you speak to people who have never even visited the UK, who have never been their target audience, they are quoting that song. They could have made so much more episodic content around it. They could have created a series like MTV Cribs, where they take somebody along a Jet2 holiday and their hotel that they booked on Jet2 and the novelty of that. It's just opportunities like that. And I think that's the key word with virality. It's an opportunity. It's not the final destination. So a brand is given an opportunity to exist in culture, and it's their choice to make that happen.
There is something fundamentally different between an organization that enables those opportunities and an organization that misses them. What do you think the difference is from the work you've done with brands?
It's timing and red tape. So usually the social team on the ground, they know what will perform. They understand culture. They understand what the audience are literally commenting because they are the community managers. They're literally hearing it day in, day out. But there's that inner communication piece and selling the idea to the director who has to sign off. Because ultimately at that level with big brands, everyone's interest is in mitigating risk. And while virality can be risky, what's most risky is irrelevance. I use the metaphor for brands. It's like being given the numbers for the lottery, but being unsure of what you should do with that money.
You've nailed it. It's red tape and timing. But it is impressive what big businesses do to remove that red tape, given the potential risk. How many people have to say, I trust you? And again, for me, it always comes down to like the power of one individual doing really good work, because someone has to say, yeah, I'm the social media manager and I know that this is going to work. And then the business has to say, fair play, I trust you and I'm going to let you run with this. I think that's really incredible. It's like a finance manager saying, I'm going to spend all of our budget and I know what to do with it. And the rest of the business going, yeah, I'm not going to ask any questions. You go for it.
And what's really frustrating with virality is that, yes, a brand might go viral, but because everyone has a phone, they assume that they're a social media expert.
Yes.
My parents have come to learn content and social media just as a result of osmosis, but my parents would not have the same understanding of social media and what lands in culture and what brands should be posting online that I would. And sometimes because the medium and because we all have phones and because everyone has Canva, they assume they're a marketing and design expert. That also skews the decision making in big businesses, which makes virality harder.
Definitely. That's what I come back to, how impressed I am with businesses that organise themselves to make this possible. The other side of that is it's so depressing working in businesses where I have founders who still ask to approve everything and completely miss the point that they need to empower the team and recognise that you're not going to get big results without big potential risk. So it drives me mad. I just think it's very impressive when businesses let it happen.
Interestingly, from like a virality perspective, I've actually worked with businesses where they don't do the usual committee situation. They actually take it in turns to approve. So instead of like everyone essentially watering down the idea and like, do this, do that, and then half of the advice is contrasting, there are some cases where actually you give someone trust for this because they want to nominate themselves for it. And then when the next idea comes up that feels more suited to another team member, then they take that and they own that.
That's such a good, clear hack on how to remove loads of red tape. Just remove death by committee, have a rota of approvers.
Yeah.
Have you seen other stuff that's worked really well?
Not so practical, but another point I was going to mention, that with virality, you have to remember that, especially on short form platforms like TikTok, like Instagram, this is usually going to be someone's first impression of you. They are entering your world. So from your perspective, you guys are celebrating in the staff room, like, brilliant, we've gone viral. But if this is a video that you won't necessarily want people to perceive you as in the long term, then maybe don't structure that as viral content. Don't aim for that to go viral. There's a certain type of content that is top of funnel, that is awareness, that you should absolutely want engagement and impressions for. But then if you're just testing a trend and it goes viral and people love the sound, then I don't think that's a win at all.
Right, quick halftime ad break, and this one's brought to you by Stickybeak. Stickybeak is something I've been genuinely using for years now. It's rapid consumer research built specifically for FMCG marketers. It tests packaging concepts and campaigns with real people fast, under 48 hours and sometimes 2 hours. It's become a cornerstone of how we test insights at my agency, Brand Hackers. I was working with an iced coffee brand recently, testing cold brew formats before committing to production. We had real consumer data, purchase intent, broken down by age and gender before a single unit was made, and it completely changed how those products went to market. The process was stupidly simple too. I hit share and could send the results straight to the founder's WhatsApp the next morning. Just clear insights I could actually act on. In FMCG, the decisions are too important to run on gut feel. The margins are tight, retail is unforgiving, and by the time you realise something isn't landing, you've already spent all the budget. In my opinion, the best FMCG teams aren't treating consumer research like some big annual project anymore. They're building it into the weekly workflows. Fast feedback means quicker decisions, fewer expensive mistakes. And when you walk into a retailer's pitch backed by real data, it's a completely different conversation. Stickybeak, rapid consumer feedback built for FMCG. Check out stickybeak.co or the show notes for more details. Now, second half of the match. Let's go. I've got another brand to throw into the mix, which I think is a bit different. So I started this by saying I really wanted to create space in this discussion for examples that are not about social reach in isolation, because I think virality can be way more than that. TOTM have run a campaign pushing back on the lack of regulation in period care. And the way they've approached this is yes, it's social first. It's about creating noise on Instagram and on LinkedIn. But fundamentally, this has been about channeling virality into a petition. So they've got over 17,000 signatures on a petition that's trying to argue for the urgent case for more regulation to be put in place. I love that. One, because it's a cause I really believe in. I think it's very important work, and I think it's great that a brand is actually driving change. Again, a shout out for the marketer behind it, like Holly Ricks and Lizzie Steno. Holly Ricks this is what she does. She has a career in startups of creating social causes that do really important work for the brand that comes along that journey. I think this is really cool in that brands can do good. I think it's also really cool that the virality isn't just around impressions, but is funneled into signatures. The proof of engagement is the signatures. It's not just the comments.
Can't fake that.
You can't fake that.
Yeah.
It's so real. And I bet that that's come in part from the social impressions, but I bet that also that's about what's the email you forward to a friend who also cares about that campaign? What goes in your WhatsApp group? What do you put in the WhatsApp group of your mum friends or your netball team? That word of mouth, sharing ideas, one human to another, I think is such an important part of this topic of how we get ideas to spread. And ultimately, when virality can result in behaviour change, because I guess what we're saying is there's viral content that drives no behaviour change. Not good. There's viral content or viral activation that does drive behaviour change. Incredible. Can do really powerful stuff for brands, for campaigns, even for society.
Absolutely. And I think what happens in social teams is that, I say we, but people get so siloed into thinking, oh, great, we got 500 comments. That means 500 people had an opinion on it. Your ideal customer might not even be the type of person that comments on things. I mean, we were speaking about it earlier. I said that if my dad knows who a celebrity is, that means they are literally very, very famous. He's on the periphery of any kind of celebrity culture radar. The same goes for socials. your customers might not even be the kind of person that comments. And then you have to think about the context. If you're a food brand, the conversation that you might want to spark is somebody sending your product video in a group chat and saying, actually, Sarah, why don't we bring this to the next get together on the weekend? You're never going to see that. That's not going to come up in any kind of social listening. Again, it's all word of mouth, and virality from the outside is like tip of the iceberg.
All right, one final last minute shout out that I'm going to slip in because this is in my notes and I did not know about this until I was researching this, but it's too good to miss, is the Liquid Death and Ozzy Osbourne DNA product. Did you see this?
Yes, I did actually.
We cannot not talk about it. I read about it and was like, that is the cleverest thing I've ever seen. So Liquid Death sold 10 DNA cans at $450 each, which were in theory cans that Ozzy Osbourne had drunk from, with the whole positioning that you could, like, they sold it as a future cloning kit. I think that is so smart. Partnerships. This is so much stuff about what all of these brand of the match stories are about, actually. It's like partnerships in a really clever way. Those two brands obviously make sense together. Really clever storytelling, great social campaign, but inherently viral because you create something that's fundamentally worth talking about. So that it ties in everything we just talked about. Of course, it's viral in terms of the social content around it, but it's going to be viral in terms of getting shared in your WhatsApp group. You know, that fits. Your test is, am I going to forward this to someone? The test is, am I going to talk about this with someone in the pub? The fact that I couldn't end this episode without talking about it, for me, shows that it's a really good example, because I think that's clever enough and kind of interesting enough that you feel like you can't leave it from the conversation.
I'm going to give you a very quick red
Whoa!
card. As you were saying that, that kind of really took me back to Sydney Sweeney when she partnered with Dr Squatch to create a range of her bath water. Whilst novelty in some cases works really well, from a partnerships perspective, you have to strike the talent at the right time. If they are on a roll of partnerships that just haven't made sense, another wacky campaign just isn't going to land.
I'm going to defend it because I think Ozzy Osbourne in his final days, immortalized in a cloning kit can, is still pretty clever. But I get the challenge. I hear you that it's like perhaps not as original as I thought it was. I still think it's pretty good. Okay, let's wrap things up there. Let's blow our whistles to end the match, and then we will award our winner. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I mean, I talked about it briefly, but I still think that IKEA Patch the Monkey turnaround is pretty spectacular. But I don't think I'm going to beat you on this. I think you're pretty obsessed with your example. Who do you think should win?
I think I'd have to give it to nothing.
I knew you were going to let me have this one.
I do admire, especially in an industry like tech where everything is so future facing, to actually just be so focused on nostalgia and to focus on TikTok as a platform.
I think to hire the ex-CMO of Loewe, I think that's
Iconic.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's so iconic. That's so brave. That's so structurally brave. All right. So we end things by looking at our crystal ball of marketing.
We do.
The future of virality. What is coming next?
I actually think we're going to see a lot more brands openly speaking about how virality hasn't served them, because still there's this illusion, especially for smaller brands. They look at the big guys and think, oh, they went viral. That must be shifting so much product. Oh, our competitor over there just went viral for doing X, Y, and Z. When actually, if you're inside those walls, the conversation might be with the social team and it's, hang on, we have X amount of impressions and the numbers are not matching.
I totally agree.
But it's overdue and it's going to happen.
So actually, we're pretty negative about virality. We don't.
When it's not strategic, and again, that in quotation marks, that looks different for every brand, but most of the time it's not.
Yeah, and so the future of virality as a sort of marketing hot topic doesn't feel that rosy. I really agree with you that we're going to start asking questions about, like, well, what was the point of that? And I think we're going to shift to a world where we will understand more the level of smarts that are required in strategy and the level of sustained resource that is required in consistent content creation, to not just have like viral hits, but to have a like maintained reach and frequency, which is both engaging and delivers a core message, requires the kind of setup that you've been describing, where it's like, these are solid teams. And I'm really starting to see already the conversation with founders change. I think people are really recognizing that this is not cheap. This is not just like give an intern a smartphone. thankfully, we've moved away from that. But I think we've still got quite a long way to go before like the mass market founder acknowledges just how expensive it is to do this job really well.
Absolutely.
Great. That's a wrap. That's full time on today's episode. Thank you so much from Joelle and I for listening. One small ask, please subscribe wherever you're listening. It makes a huge difference to us and helps us keep bringing you bigger and better ideas. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok and LinkedIn. All the handles are in the show notes. And jump in the comments if today's episode sparked anything. We'd love to hear from you. See you next week.